Start from Iran, where Ibrahim Raeisi, a judge who is subject to US sanctions, has won the presidential election by landslide. According to the preliminary results, Raeisi received over 17.8 million votes, followed by Mohsin Rezai with 3.3 million. Economist Nasir Hemati gained 2.4 million, while Amir Hossein Ghazizadeh Hashemi remained fourth, while with almost 1 million votes. The Interior Ministry data shows more than 28 million Iranians out of 59 million eligible voters cast their ballot. Conceding defeat, all other candidates, as well as Iran's current president Hassan Rouhani, have congratulated Raeisi. Raeisi has been Iran's judiciary chief since 2019 and has held several other posts in the country's judicial branch since the 1979 revolution. Now, for more on this, we have with us Dr. Fouad Izadi, a political analyst from Tehran. Thank you very much. Now, Fouad, as Ibrahim Raeisi is labeled as an ultra-conservative, what foreign policy Iran would pursue under his rule, especially in nuclear deal revival talks and also negotiations between Iran and Saudi Arabia?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. He's going to start his presidency in about 1.5 months. And since he has promised a lot in terms of improving Iran's economy, he wants to see sanctions lifted. So I don't think he would not welcome an agreement with the United States on JCPOA, the nuclear agreement. I think he would welcome it. He would also want to attract foreign investment. So he wants to create a setting where foreign investment is able to flourish inside the country. One of the promises that he made during the debates is working more with the neighborhood. Countries like Pakistan and Turkey and Iraq and others that Iran is a neighbor of. So I think you would see a more robust effort in terms of making sure that all economic and trade opportunities are exhausted when it comes to Iran's neighbors. And given the sanctions, working with the neighbors is going to be easier because of shared borders. So that's going to be one of his other priorities. Overall, he belongs to the school of thought that is generally described as the welfare state, caring for the poor and sort of looking towards the lower segments of society and taking care of that segment more. This is how the Islamic Revolution in 1979 started. And the main supporters of the revolution were the lower segments of society. So on his agenda would be helping that segment and making sure that the traditional supporters of the Islamic Republic continue to do so.
Also, Dr. Fouad, tell us, how do you see future ties between Washington and Tehran, as Raeisi would be the serving Iranian president sanctioned by the US government?
Because of so many sanctions that we have, you can hardly find any top official that is not sanctioned by the United States. So, they have been sanctioning Iran for 40 years and they have run out of people to sanction. So we have some people who have been sanctioned more than once, in fact. And Iran-US relations very much depends on the United States. If they want to keep the failed policies of the past, if they want to keep Trump's sanctions on Iran, if they want to put pressure on Iran to change its foreign policy or defense policy, then Iran-US relations will look like what we have it today, lots of difficulties. But they have an opportunity to change course, given the fact that all these sanctions and pressures have not worked in the last 42 years. They can change their policy towards Iran. They have an opportunity to have a clean return to the nuclear agreement without other things that they want. And if they decide to do that, then I think they will find a receptive president in Iran in the Raeisi administration. But if they want to continue the old policies, I think you'll see confrontation between Iran and United States as we go forward.
And if we're talking about confrontation, lastly, considering the fact that Israel has flared up proxies against Iran, How do you view the regional security contours under Raeisi?
Iran has said very clearly that Iran supports any Palestinian group that is fighting for liberation with military support. We have a number of Muslim countries that support Palestinians rhetorically. The difference between Iran is that Iran is willing and able to support them militarily, because we have seen that unless the Palestinians are able to defend themselves militarily, this occupation will continue, and there is no end to it. The apartheid state in Israel needs to end, and Iran is able and willing to help with that regard. With other neighbors, Iran's policy has been to reduce tensions and increase cooperation. Iran and Pakistan, for example, have had long-standing cultural and economic ties. And as I said, Mr. Raeisi would look forward to improve those ties. Similar thing is true with regard to some of the neighbors that we have had difficulties. For example, the Saudis. Iran's foreign policy does not want to see the continuation of these tensions between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So I think he would look forward to reducing tensions. And as you know, Iran and Saudi Arabia are talking. They have held a number of rounds of talk. So overall, I think Mr. Raeisi wants to have lower tensions internationally so he can dedicate more of his time to economic problems internally.